Are you an entrepreneur or ready to become a boss? Welcome to Hawaii Boss, the business podcast made in Hawaii, where you will hear from island movers and shakers on who they are and their impact on our state. And now, step into the office of your host for Hawaii Boss, David Pettyjohn.
Aloha, Hawaii Boss podcast listeners and those who watch. You can get in on YouTube and find out what we're doing and who we're talking to. It's Hawaii's business podcast. And we talk to so many people. We go to the boss's office to try and find out what the answer is to some of the complex questions that are, Hawaii's economy and also the folks who love to live and work here. And so we're especially excited to go to newly minted Dr. Natalie Perez, recent graduate of the doctoral program in learning design and technology at UH Manoa. And currently now, we're going to have to find that road, how we got there from Ph.D. and learning design technology to research scientist at Amazon. So all this and more. Anyway, we're very excited. Dr. Perez, welcome and aloha.
Thank you so much, David. I'm thrilled to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to talk story.
Sure. Yeah. You were, to be truthful, I know you before this because I was in the master's program, haven't completed it, long story, master's program, I'll just blame COVID, but you were the graduate assistant helping the folks carry that program out. It was the distance program at UH Manoa, the master's in learning design and technology. And so from there to now, research scientist. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, was it just a straight path? You knew from the beginning, oh yeah, research scientist at Amazon. Why don't I go into learning design and technology?
Oh, that's such a great question. And it really makes me think about my career journey and what an odd and wild, wacky journey it's been.
Mm-hmm.
When we first met in that master's program, I was a second year master's student and helping out with our first year students. And while I was a master's student in the learning design and technology program at UH Manoa, I was working at the University of Hawaii, West Oahu. And I was working as a online success and support specialist or coordinator. And my job there was really working with our student affairs and all focused on retention efforts and services. And so I worked closely in the tutoring center. We were trying to build out online tutoring and support services, and then also working with our different support services on campus to help convert a lot of those services online. And this was pre-COVID, pre-pandemic.
So that coordinates those things. You're trying to help students stay in. They don't know where to get the resources, or they have to go in and see someone, but they're off on vacation, or they don't have this, but there's a one-stop shop for them to go and say, hey, I need help. I want to stay in. I need some help. Where do I go? So this was you sort of at the grassroots, the start of that, having to do it sort of out of necessity.
Yes, exactly. And at UH West Oahu, they have so many online programs. And we have a lot of students, they have a lot of students that are on outer islands, getting business degrees or public health degrees. And those students couldn't necessarily pop over on a plane to get tutoring or to get, support with an academic advisor. We really needed those services to be online. So that was my work. That's sort of how I was introduced into the LTech program. My job kind of necessitated more online knowledge. And I had no idea what online learning, what online support meant. And I found this LTech program and decided to join it. And so that's how I sort of ended up in the master's program. What that program ultimately taught me was not only how to function and survive in being an online educator, but also how to be an instructional designer, which is really a learning experience person.
Which is different than, you think, okay, you're online, you're creating courses, but there's actually some thought that goes to it. You're using this design process or design theory to actually carry out to build the courses, I guess.
Absolutely. Instructional designers are used in about every single industry imaginable. I was just walking around Costco the other day, and one of the things that I realized at Costco is that there's two lines to exit out of Costco, but there's constantly this funneling where people just sort of end up in this one line or these three random lines.
Sure.
And so I was standing there in line at Costco last week and thinking, wow, it would be great if Costco invested in an instructional designer to walk around their store and just look and observe the experience of people, right? Kind of like a user experience to an extent, experiencing the system, and figure out what in this system can we improve to help provide people with directions to improve their experience. And so one thought, right, is like, maybe we just need to draw some duct tape lanes with some arrows or 2 lanes. People can go in 1 or 2 lanes, and we have a sign that says, pick a lane and stay in that lane.
Right.
So that it alleviates traffic, and people at the end saying, there's 2 lane, there's 2 routes.
Right.
And that's an instructional designer's job, as much as an instructional designer would be working in a medical field and working with surgeons who are using brand new technology, who don't know how to use that technology.
Right.
And
how do they get up to speed with that? Is it a quick process, or they have to, is it going to take them another year, but they need their skills and those on that, able to use that machine like right now?
Exactly. And Boeing, and our pilots and NASA. And so the instructional designers are really imperative, and increasingly imperative in so many industries across the world and across the globe. And so that was one thing that was really an unexpected outcome of our LTech program. I didn't even know what it really meant to be an instructional designer. And after graduating, I landed a job at Honolulu Community College, and I worked there, transitioned from UH West Oahu to Honolulu Community College as their director of online learning and teaching. And I loved higher ed. I loved that work, but I really enjoyed instructional design work as well. And so at the time, I was working as this kind of director of online teaching and learning / this sort of chief sole campus instructional designer.
Except you don't have any time for that because you're too busy in the administration of the director program.
Exactly.
So
trying to really build programs. Right. Exactly. Right. Trying to help build programs and kind of move things along. And I love that campus, love those people. But about a year into that role, a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn from Amazon and said, hey, we're looking for a senior instructional designer. Would you be interested? And at first I thought, there's no way, like
I'm in the school thing. I'm kind of, this is where my lane is.
Yes,
I mean, private sector was never really even a thing, right?
Exactly. I mean, that I thought I was in a tenure track position at the University of Hawaii, which I loved. And at that time decided to join that Ph.D. program at LTech because I just loved it so much. And my husband really encouraged me. He said, you know what, Natalie, what do you have to lose? Just talk to the recruiter. So I did. And one thing led to another. I completed a series of interviews. They flew my family and I over to Seattle, which is where their headquarters were. We got to tour around Seattle, check out Amazon facilities, and then do 6 more interviews on site. And by the time we flew back home, I had a job offer in my inbox.
Wow.
And that was different.
They just whisked you right off your feet. Beware,
they really did.
Good recruiting systems. It sounds like they pulled out all the stops.
They pulled out all of the stops. I mean, it was just, it felt too good to be true.
Right.
And after a lot of kind of time and thoughtful decision-making, my husband and I ultimately decided, this might be a really cool opportunity for me to expand my skill set and also explore a new place as a family. And so, being born in Hawaii, grew up in Haleiwa, Wailua area, and then came over to Eva when I was about 10 with my family. I was a little intimidated to move to Seattle, but we picked up and left as a family. And I started working at one of the big headquarter buildings in downtown Seattle as a senior instructional designer.
You feels like, hey, you made it, kid, huh?
It kind of felt like it, I was like, wow, it just feels too good to be true. And these are fancy buildings. I mean, it felt like I was working in the 22nd century. Everything was so few. I couldn't even figure out how to get up the elevator. It was special.
Plus the Wi-Fi speed is pretty good, huh? Oh,
no kidding. But man, I missed home, of course. I missed our food. I missed our fish, our poke. But so I, unexpected career pivot totally from this kind of admin level tenure track position in higher ed to now fast-paced corporate culture Amazon. And
Yeah.
that was a huge transition for me and a big culture shock in so many different ways. From
Hawaii too. There's a
from
certain
Hawaii,
pace in
right?
Hawaii, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
And just the environment of higher ed, and all
Right.
the aspects to that, to then pivoting to Seattle, this new environment.
There's a new clock
And
on everything, right? It's about it's double the speed of what you're used to.
absolutely it
Response
was.
time on your email. It's not like I just emailed you like 5 minutes ago. How come there's not an answer? Kind of
Yes.
intensity. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think a
Mhm.
great example of that is I was thinking of project timelines, and, a project that I would have maybe had about 4 months to complete in my previous role, I was given about 4 weeks to complete. So things were just sped up, astronomically. And it really took a lot to keep up the pace with this new role and this new tasks, and also figure out what my new role was.
Right.
One of the, exciting things about Amazon is that you can really invent the role that makes sense for you. And so it took some kind of bob and weaving, but I really was able to invent this new type of role that was never had on the team based on this gap analysis, and just, all of these gaps, all of these problems, all these holes that I started to see that needed filling.
Right.
And so that was exciting and very different. And
you pulled on that master's degree that you'd worked with. You could see, okay, now I can see where this applies in the business world, or where other people have that deficit too, because they're like instructional design. I don't know. They're the ones that manage the MLS. No. Or
Yes.
the LMS, whatever, learning management system. No,
Yes.
that's not them. It's the guys that devise the courses that try to get your customers what they want.
Exactly. And so it was incredible how much I was able to use and reuse from my master's program. It was the biggest asset to me and my team. And ultimately, from that master's program, the experience that I had, it really helped to shape our team. And I was given so much ownership and responsibility really early on to completely reimagine what our team of 18 instructional designers and senior instructional designers were doing. The crazy thing too, that just kind of blew my mind, was I was very used to focusing on a small amount of learners in a very contextually specific environment. I had global learners. I had thousands of learners in 24 different countries speaking 14 different languages, and trying to figure out that whole system was also new and exciting, and really fun, and really ultimately.
How about having all those amazing digital tools at your expense though too, where you before, like, wow, I have a lot of data here that I can
much data. It's so much data. And that's, I think, where simultaneously I was also still enrolled in that PhD program. That's where I started really engaging in those PhD skills of research. I really was being trained to become a true researcher in that PhD program.
So you're not one of those like statistics like, oh yeah, guys, we're doing analysis of variance. Yay. Is that you? Is that?
That's such a great question. I have been trained, I would say, as a mixed method researcher in quantitative and qualitative research. But even from my undergrad, I have always had this thing for words. And so I've always leaned closer to qualitative research. But in my work at Amazon, I really did a lot of mixed methods research. So trying to look at large scale generalizations of different populations, based on probability. And then based on those large scale generations, trying to elaborate or explain some of the interesting things that we were finding that we just couldn't quite get out of the survey research that we were doing. And that's when I dive into focus groups or individual interviews to try and make sense of these kind of large scale, more generalizable data that we were seeing. So I definitely, I love and respect quantitative data, but man, I really love qualitative data.
And really identify. So, and that's the thing too, for learning, and as you're developing for school, you're learning for this little, maybe a small, like you said, small audience. But with Amazon, they have so many different initiatives as well, directions they're trying to understand their audience. Because I think that's the first thing that you learn, I think, in the master's, understand who you're teaching first, because that's going to help you to build sort of from there, sort of scaffold the rest of your learning. I think, again, Amazon, we're all trying to learn about how this works. There are different things because they're curious about us as customers. They're not only curious, they want to know everything about us as customers. So there's assume as a research scientist, you're trying to find out about the customer, what their needs and wants are. Tell us how that now is generating into this research that you're doing currently with Amazon.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I will say, to circle back around briefly, my master's program was perfectly applied to the work that I was doing, and the PhD program that I was enrolled in added that extra layer on top of like really critical research, which was such a great complement to my work as a senior instructional designer. And so my audience was internal employees, and I was really focusing on what are people doing in their work, and how are they performing? And if they're performing a certain way, will training help to improve performance, or will training do anything about performance? And so I became an investigator and a consultant to our operations teams to really determine when and how training may or may not be appropriate to really help our employees do their job to the best of their abilities. And so that was sort of the work that I was doing, and it just so nicely paired that applied nature of my master's program and this very rigorous research aspect of my PhD program. And I was enjoying that work so much. But what I realized, David, is that I wanted to do more exclusive research work, because I was finding that about 15% of my time was allowed to be devoted to research, but really I had this 85 percent of like is actually production, right?
Right.
I got to design, I got to develop, I got to implement, I got to evaluate. And so there was just not as much of a time for research. And the really exciting thing and cool thing about Amazon is that there are about every single type of job out there, like under the sun, is somehow available at Amazon. And so a really cool opportunity in Amazon, and a lot of people take advantage of that, is shifting around to completely different fields. If you're interested in that. And so I was bobbing around and I found this qualitative research scientist role. And I thought, you know what, that sounds really interesting. I want to pursue that and maybe do more exclusive research. And so I wrote to the hiring manager, we did a few interviews, and I was landed the job that I'm currently in. So I'm working as a qualitative research scientist now, and very similar to the work that I was previously doing, I actually research our employees. There's lots of different research teams who are researching a lot of different entities and organizations and audiences, but my focus is on employees. And specifically, Amazon recently created a leadership principle that Amazon really wants to become Earth's best employer. And a natural question off of that is, what does it mean to be Earth's best employer? And so one of my opportunities is really get to explore what it means to be Earth's best employer, and what do our employees think about that, and how can we, as a larger company and institution, start to weave and craft policies or programs or initiatives that help us to get closer to that idealized perspective of being Earth's best employer.
Right. Difficult, trying to get that information up from the world. Hey, like we just need the 8 million data points on this today.
Exactly.
8 billion, whatever tested. Yeah. So trying to, and each each country that you're working in. So, I mean, you're looking at employees internationally. And so each metric, I guess, that you're working from, qualitative metric, would be different or set of those metrics would be different for each group. So that you're in the design part, you can design the different studies.
Yeah, I get to have a lot of autonomy, even down to, starting with like the problem. Is there a problem? And, if we're seeing that there's a problem, then, based on that problem, what type of research questions do we have that might be able to help answer that problem? And then, creating a problem statement off of that. And then based on that, choosing what type of research design do we need? What type of research design is going to help us answer those research problems, and so on and so forth. So it's really trying to, I have a lot of autonomy to work through that. And of course, I work with a brilliant group of individuals, and we do a lot of cross collaboration to make sure that what we're doing makes sense, and getting a lot of feedback and iteration in those cycles before I actually launch a study, which I really appreciate.
Sure, which is a part of that. There's that peer network of review, which is sort of the instructional design sort of main foundation too, is that there's a peer group that's, up and set for review, and there's a review process, and that everybody's involved. So it sounds exciting. There's a lot of, wonks out there that may not, ooh, exciting, let's qualitative research and things like that. But I think, listen, we better think about it, because again, you're trying to solve the age old problem, I think, which we're all trying to solve. Big companies are always doing this. How do we retain our staff? How do we retain the best staff? But then also have the staff, have a sort of a quality of life that they appreciate, so that it doesn't cause turnover. I mean, there are so many measures factors that go into, keeping a good quality. And then also, I think in Amazon's case, having to not only maintain, but to grow at the same time their employee base. Boy, you've really got to, you're assessing the entire country for employees. All those people who just bought something over there, are they a potential employee?
Right. No, exactly. It's such a good point. And I think that the core word that you've tapped onto is retention. And, I realized it the other week that I seem to have kind of lent or found my way to a lot of retention focused roles. I mean, think about the University of Hawaii, West Oahu, and I was working in a retention role there for several years. And each of my jobs has had kind of an aspect of retention, but again, this research scientist role has a big retention focus on it. And I think that I've come down to really enjoying retention. I really am passionate about helping and supporting people. And really my kind of key word has always been ho'olalima, many helping hands make light work. And I really love the idea of building community with those helping hands and working together to achieve something really great. So I find a lot of value and satisfaction in that work. And I'm really thankful for this new job that I've gotten. I'm really having a lot of fun.
And you're able to commute remotely from your home sweet home in Hawaii.
Yes, which is huge. I kind of skipped over that, but we were in Seattle for about 9 months. COVID had hit. My husband and I had our son was 9 months old at the time. We were both, his childcare shut down. We were both trying to work remotely and parent, and it was hard, like so many people's lives. It was hard. And I told my leadership, I said, I think something's got to give. And my parents, my family, cousins, everyone was back home in the islands. And I said, hey, can we temporarily relocate? I thought, we'll move back for 5 months, and then, this whole thing will be over and done with. And then, we'll probably end up going back to Seattle. So they gave us the A-OK to move home. And then, 2 months after that, quickly realized, this is not something that's going to go away anytime soon. And our leadership recognized that as well. And so I was granted an exception to work full-time remotely from Hawaii. And a year has passed, and there's been a lot of companies across the sector that have shifted policies radically and allowed a lot more people to permanently work from home, regardless of many different types of roles. I've got a good friend in mid Oahu, Pearl City area, who's working for Netflix and was living, born and raised in Pearl City, moved to the Bay Area to work for Netflix, and their role got converted remotely. So they came back home. And there's been really cool stories of people who I just have so much more job opportunities. And I think that's one of the, one silver lining out of this really awful, situation with the pandemic, is that there's just a lot more opportunities for Hawaii folks to be able to work remotely and to work for different companies and corporations like never before.
Well, I'm certain it does help that you have this, amazing background and resume, and that the companies are good. And I think your role too has the opportunity. Some people think, well, Amazon's a big company. They've got research scientists trying to figure out all my what I'm doing and stuff like that. They're, what do they call that? Big brother's watching. But actually, this kind of research, when you do well-founded research, you bring it out and says, hey, no, listen, the company has to come up with something here. There's something. It's not just because the staff need to toe our line better. Well, the company has to create another, maybe an environment or whatever it is as a solution to help them feel more comfortable in that workspace. So it's a great way, I think, to make sure that, big corporations, I guess everyone says big corporations, but what's your experience working with them? It sounds like they've been very, very amenable to your needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, David, you've touched on something really important. I think that in a lot of previous companies' philosophies, there's just been values from a top-down approach, where whatever the leadership values, they will embed that into the community, and the employees are expected to also value whatever leaders
Eat
value.
it or leave it. Take it or leave
Exactly,
it.
exactly.
Either you
Yes,
sing this tune or you're not in the wrong company.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that COVID really pulled that out and made that much clearer, that really it should not be a top-down approach, but a collaborative and aligned approach where we're looking at employees' values and leaders' values,
Sure.
and really trying to determine how are they different, how are they similar, and how can we align leaders' values with employees' values to really make work better.
Because the managers have to be on board with this too. They can't go with that old style too, and expect this, anything to change on the retention numbers, And I think that's we're doing that in our healthcare too. And Arbinger Institute is the name of a group that we use related to open-mindedness, open mindsets, and different things. But through that training, we learned that the executive have a significant responsibility in this retention part. They can't just keep barking out orders and expecting something different. But where do I fit in? Potentially, there's not bad. Well, we say bad things, and just as flatly in business, but less effective ways of doing things. And we value the talent of an executive, but if there's certain things they can't do in regards to relationship with their staff, then then I guess that's where the training comes in. Like, okay, maybe we can train the executives then to behave in this way and understand their role in nurturing new staff and things. So I guess it's for managers and for the frontline staff.
Absolutely. I think there's so much work to be done in that space. And I think that there's a lot of innovation that can happen. And that's what we're really trying to focus on with my team, which I really love. It's new, it's different. And I'm hoping that through our work, we can not only care about our employees, but also make their work lives better.
Right. Well, I mean, and I think that's all companies. They say, we want to be employer of choice. We want to make this the place where this is home for them. And I don't know, how many employees are there at Amazon?
We've got a lot. We've got a lot of employees spread out over around the world. So we've got several hundreds of thousand employees.
Yeah. So again, it must be, when you have a little mom and pop place, hey, we're going to have a little meeting, everybody get together, everybody brings up their coffee and like, okay, this is what's going on. But here, it's like everybody's doing their tasks and there's different people, different tasks they're doing. How often do they have access to a computer? How often, just all these different kinds of things. It must be take not only you, but several groups. You said there were 8. How many people are in researching problems like this?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a whole faculty of individuals spread out from around the globe who are really invested in this work and are doing just incredible work. I think that's another one of the things that I love about our Amazon science team is that I get to work with people who are brilliant, and many of them with doctoral degrees in fields that range from anthropology to learning design and technology to IO psychology to economics and and so much more, linguistics, and that's the really exciting part as well. I think we have such a nice diversity of individuals who have such a wealth of different ideas and perspectives, and I think that really helps to strengthen our focus and our goal to really improve people's work lives in so many different ways and capacities. So it's exciting. I learn so much from my job, which again, if I could, I think my dream job would be to just be like a professional learner. And this is getting pretty close to that, which I'm loving.
Well, that they spend all that time on research and they're oftentimes, I guess, some of them, you ever felt outclassed? Some of these guys are super ladies, whatever, that you when you first arrive, a little girl from Hawaii, And like you said, Seattle, that was a big shift. And now this,
Mhm.
is there a place where you're like, maybe I don't feel like I belong here? Again, I don't, for me, like, yeah, that was for me in the master's program. But for you, I mean, when you get to a place like this, there's some of the best in the world. What does
Yes.
that feel like?
David, I can't tell you how much I have struggled and probably will continue to struggle with imposter syndrome. I
Right.
remember, when I accepted the job, I just was shocked. I was like, I'm a scientist. I was like, I'm just a little kid from Eva, like, how can I be a
Why am I here?
scientist?
Why am I here? Right.
Yeah. And then I remember, the first, and I told my boss this, my manager, who's incredibly talented and brilliant and so kind. But I first day went into a meeting, and it was a research report meeting, and I'm sitting there trying to read and understand this report and thinking, I think I'm the least smart person in this room.
And everybody knows it.
And everybody knows it, and then I shared that with him, and he was laughing. But it really took a lot of it. It really took a lot for me to be okay. I can be okay in this discomfort, and it's okay to be discomfortable because I'm stretching. And I'll tell you what, I have learned so much even from that first meeting.
Right.
And I'm so thankful for it. And so I think it was just having to kind of switch that mindset of imposter syndrome to, okay, I just need to accept growth mindset and be okay saying, I don't understand this, or I don't know.
Right.
And what I found is that everyone is so helpful and so supportive, and so willing to take a step on the side to
Right.
help talk or walk through or explain this. And I've also found opportunities where I do have a voice, and I am, I can be
Right,
an
I was
expert
gonna
in
ask
this
that.
area. And I think that's been also really empowering too, that, well, I actually know a lot about this one thing. I might not know a lot about X, Y, and Z, but I know about this one thing. And
Right.
that one thing can bring value. And I think that's really helped also me to get over this imposter syndrome, and also recognize when I don't know, and provides me with a lot of opportunities
Right.
to dive deep and learn more. So
Well, there's still, I'm sure, some exciting projects you want to get on. So, you have to, still produce some, some
oh
quality
yes.
of work, and that, you don't want
Exactly.
to be left behind on some of these dead projects. You won't probably want to,
Exactly.
there's no competition, not that they're, the competitive nature or anything like that. And there, it's good that it's collegial, but again, I think it sounds like everyone's trying to hold each other accountable to their best. And
Absolutely.
that's awesome.
It's wonderful. It's a great environment. And I really, I really value environments where, again, there's a sense of ohana and ho'olalima, where we're collaborating and connecting together as a family. And I've really tried to infuse that in each one of the roles that I've had on the continent, sort of outside of Hawaii. And I think there's such a need to infuse so many of those place-based values, in companies that are here and elsewhere. And I really feel like when I'm able to get to that place where, we're carving time to just be able to build relationships with each other and to really get rid of, different mentalities where it's kind of me or everybody else, but no, it's this invitation of group thinking. That has been really special, and that's something that I've really taken, especially based on my experiences within our University of Hawaii system, and certainly from the LTech program. And so I try as much as I can to infuse those values and characteristics where I am, and it's been so fruitful and valuable, and really created some lasting relationships that I'm really thankful for. So there's definitely, continues to be work to be done across any organization's culture. But when you can tap into those, I think there's so much value and richness in there that I've really appreciated.
I appreciate that, because that's one of Hawaii's main exports is aloha, and also knowing it, well, continuing to do business and doing business in Hawaii. There's that give back part, or the requirement to sort of, you have to state that in your position on things coming from Hawaii, or again representing Hawaii in any way. And you're, Dr. Perez from UH Manoa, you got to represent Hawaii for sure. So no pressure there, but we appreciate that you're doing that, and I think it will continue to show in your work, and we hope to hear. Sometimes doctors' work is listed in obscure writing somewhere at the bottom of somewhere, if at all. But certainly, you'll tell us. You have to come back on and tell us when some of the work that you've done, if swung folks this way or another. Our retention is down, 5%, due to or up. Up 5%. Yeah, turnover. I get those two mixed up. Anyway,
absolutely. Thanks, David.
Listen, anything before I've got some other questions, some quick questions to get to know you a little bit better. But before you do, anything else to the maybe aspiring folks who from your street in Eva that how do we come up and why do you recommend this field?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think that for my neighborhood friends and kids that I've grown up with and my community, I think that asking for help is important. And one of the things that I've really done is I've had to get over that imposter syndrome and that feeling of shame in asking for help. I received a lot of tutoring as a student in college, and that connected me to the tutoring center where I got my first job at the university working as a staff member. And that just led to this incredible snowball effect to where I am now. And so I really think that asking for help is huge. And there's so much value in that. So don't be afraid to ask for help. I think is my biggest advice. And I know it kind of sounds a little bit funny, but honestly, I really think that has been the biggest benefit to me in my career journey has been asking for help.
Yeah, don't wallow in ignorance when there's no need to. Reach out. There's always someone who may know the answer. If not, there are a lot of people more than willing to help. Mentors out there. I'm sure all of your Ph.D. Folks who are on your committee and all those folks out there were again helpful in this long, actually short journey of yours to this great success. So we're excited, and thank you for coming on the Hawaii Boss. I think we've got a lot of answers. But before we let you go, we want to find out a little bit more about you. And these questions aren't too bad. We won't dig too deep here. But listen, learning design technology, you're spending a lot of time on Zoom. Here's the question everybody's asking: do we mirror our video or not mirror our video?
That's a good question. I think that if you have a background and it makes sense for you to mirror your video, go for it. If you have a busy background and part of you is like blending into that background, maybe don't. You'll notice I don't have a blended background right now because my background is busy and usually half my shoulder just blends into the background.
Blends right into the thing. Hey, where'd she go? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm partly disappeared. But honestly, I think that you do you, and whatever makes sense for you is what makes sense for you.
But we go after the deeper questions, here. But so tell us, hey, you spend a lot of time over there. Favorite place to if you had a break, go down and eat?
Yeah, I have such a sweet tooth. And so I was always over at that corner across from College of Ed, La Banyan. Or
right across the street there. Big banana there or something.
Yes, like that. Yeah. Every break that I had, I was over there getting some type of sweet treat to tie me over. So that was my go-to.
And as a student too, when faculty ever had a meeting too, you'd kind of sneak in and
grab a little something. Here's a sweet treat for you, and let's talk about some intense things.
Have we started eating these yet, or is this for everybody?
Exactly.
So listen, people in Hawaii, they're in Hawaii. People come to vacation here, but in Hawaii, where are you now with Amazon? If you wanted to relocate somewhere with them, or again, if you wanted to go somewhere else and live, do you have a place where if you were to become an expat, where would you go?
That's a good question. My husband and I talk about this all the time.
My choice is Portugal, so I don't want to spoil it, but Portugal. Okay. We're thinking Portugal.
I've got 3 that I would be happy to either one of these, and so would my husband. But so my mom is born and raised in Auckland, New Zealand, and I've got a bazillion family all over the North Island. I've been there once and I loved it. And so my husband and I, if we could, we would relocate to New Zealand as like maybe a top number 1, but a close top 2.5 would be Japan or South Korea. Wow. Yeah, we really love Japanese culture, also love Korean culture in different ways. And so we would be excited, maybe not long term, but certainly short term, we would love to be in Japan and or South Korea.
Well, I just heard in Korea that they just changed some visa laws that are opening up some other technical positions. I think that may include some of these, the type of
Good
work
to know.
that you do. I have a fancy for Korea too. Having lived there for a couple of years, and anyway, I love the food
Yes,
and
totally.
but anyway, well, I would love to travel to any of those too, especially Japan. They have I have this. We've been watching sumo lately. And
Oh,
and
nice.
every quarter they have this big tournament. And anyway, there's these, they have trading cards, all this stuff. I haven't got the trading cards yet. I'm not that far in, but anyway, love all those cultures. And we hope that through your experience, again, you're just starting. You've got so many awesome opportunities. And it sounds like with the kind of hours you keep, you must have worked a few sleepless nights during the last 5 years or so.
Oh, lots of sleepless nights, but it's been totally worth it. And, I'm thankful for that. And hey, just a Age of Samurai battle for Japan. If you are a Netflix fan, I just finished that last night and it was fabulous. It's so interesting to just see the history.
Documentary series?
It is the history between Japan and South Korea and China. And anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, it's very,
now I have time.
Next time we come on. Yes, I know. So tell us, we'll come back on if you're heading over to heading back to New Zealand.
I will.
And keep us posted. Anyway, so thank you for coming on, Dr. Perez. It's been Dr. Natalie. I don't know, some doctors go that way, but anyway, thank you so much for coming on and joining the Hawaii Boss crew.
David, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Mahalo for your time.
Mahalo.
Make sure to subscribe to Hawaii Boss and follow us on social media at Hawaii Boss Podcast at the links in the description. We'll see you soon in the boss's office.